Hey everybody, welcome back to One More Ride Garage. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button down below and try to get to 1,000 subscribers so that maybe we can do some live shows. But with that, here's today's video. We're going to install this Auxbeam 8-gang switch panel, which I found on Amazon, I believe. I might put a link to it in the description so you guys can pick it up. And there are different models of this. So there is I know that this one, you can actually change the color of the background. So it's called an RGB 8-gang switch panel. They make solid color. And there's other options as well that make it cheaper. So pay attention when you order it. If you want the ability to change the colors, you'll want to order the RGB edition. And I think I paid roughly just over $200 for this. But it gives you 8 switches. I'm gonna show you guys how it works, and then we're gonna install it. But it's really gonna be nice. Let me get this camera up here mounted. It's gonna be really nice. Instead of having to run relays and switches to every single accessory, you have everything you need with this kit. So there's not many switch locations in here. So as you can see, right below the gear shifter there's 2 spots for switches. Now on the dash, there's really no spots. I think you could probably use this area. Yeah, you can use that area right there, right beside the key. So you maybe have 1 spot up here. Looking at the switch panel, this is your normal setup here. There's not a whole lot of good options to mount this switch panel. So as you can see, there's not a lot of room between the center console and the key switch or the key port. So just to take up kind of even space, I decided that maybe this lower left corner here, right in this section right here, might be the best option. So I went ahead and attached this bracket, this mounting bracket that comes with the unit. I just put 2 small screws in here and here to attach it, and I left these a little bit loose so that I could work with it. And so I'm thinking that you can mount this flat against the bottom of this plastic, and then it'll be able to swivel up and look somewhat like this once it's done. So it'll kind of take up a good portion of the dash. I think it'll be nice and clean. The other option was down here, and it just doesn't leave you any room between that and the gear shift to be comfortable. Another option is over here, closer to the passenger, but I still like this. I like taking up this void right here. I've decided to mount the switch panel here, so I'm going to put the camera down here. Hopefully you'll be able to see everything I'm doing here. So I went it over a little bit. We got to watch this this connection here, because depending on where we leave this, we won't be able to get to our screw to tighten it down. Maybe 1 screw's good, maybe not. You know, that's the problem I'm seeing. So maybe it sticks out a little bit more than I originally thought, something like that. It's where I can actually get a wrench onto it over there. Got my paint pen here. It's just a Sharpie paint pen, and it's white, so it should stick out pretty good. Right there is good. Okay. Well, that worked a little bit better. We do have one hole. It's really close to an edge, but looks like it should still be okay. Okay, so next I'll drill the holes, and then we'll use some of the hardware that came with it to bolt everything up. All right, so this is a bit that's roughly the same size as our hardware. Make sure you don't go through too far once you're through, but you do got to clean out that hole a little bit. Okay, here's number one. Now on this one, we're going to make sure we don't touch that smart lock at all. So there's our two mounting holes. And then let me grab the unit and some hardware and we'll put it in. So this is the hardware I planned on using. It's possible that these are a hair too long, but we're gonna find out. But it's pretty much bolt washer on the bottom, and then washer nut up in the cavity. So it's gonna be interesting to try to thread those bolts into the nut up in that tight space, but we're gonna give it our best shot. So before we head over there and install this and bolt it to the plastic, we're gonna make sure that you have all 4 of your screws, or how many ever screws you have in your bracket. You wanna make sure they're tightened up and you have all the screws in there. And then these are the 2 holes we're gonna be mounting with up to the plastic. So let's go try to put this thing on with the hardware. Bolt washer, and then I need nut washer. Do that. Washer. And a nut. Okay. I will show you guys the back of this as well once it's done, so that you can see the bolts up in here and how close they are to other equipment. Okay, so everything, both bolts are on. The bolts aren't sticking through the nut too far to where I think it's going to hit anything. Okay, so here's a quick look at the Auxbeam control panel mounted. You can see that it does stick out a little bit from the dash. It's rotated back and almost touching the smart lock, but not touching it. But you have to leave enough gap so that you can get to this Allen nut here, so that you can adjust the tightness. Because I'm afraid after a ride or two, this thing, if it has problems, I assume it's going to be those Allen nuts loosening up a bit. So I was leery about burying it to where you couldn't get to it. So I left it exposed. It's touching. It's a little bit difficult to get an Allen wrench into it, but you can, and I did, and I tightened it up. And let me set the light down here. I'm gonna grab a hold of it. You can see that it is tight. It doesn't move up and down. You know, I'm moving the plastic on the dash before I'm moving the actual switch panel itself. So it's tight, it's mounted. The bolts, the hardware on the back is tight. So we're over here at the driver's side of the car. The battery for this unit is mounted underneath the driver's seat, as you can see. And there's not a whole lot of room for an auxiliary battery. However, I plan to install an auxiliary battery. The location is to be determined still, but I'm going to guide you guys through that process when I make that decision. But for now, I want to keep my options open. So I'm not going to take up any more space inside of this battery cube. However, I did notice that there was a flat spot here just to the back. You can see that little indentation. And so one of the things you want to avoid here is attaching a breaker or a piece of equipment and accidentally nicking an $800 wiring harness or whatever it might be. It might be a little much, but still, you don't want to nick it. So let me adjust the light here. So so we picked this location here, and what I did was I crawled underneath, and there is a hole. You're not gonna be able to see it on camera, but there is a hole up here where you can actually get your eyes onto that little indentation from the bottom. And I'm talking about this indentation right here. You can see it, you can see underneath it, you can see the plastic around it and in front of it. When I say in front of, I mean to the rear of the vehicle. So that spot has nothing underneath it, right? So I checked, made sure I wasn't gonna nick a harness or nick a wire or something. So that spot is gonna be good to mount our circuit breaker. When we mount it, we'll make sure we take a little bit of care and leave some room for a second one for future additions if we need them. And then we start looking at the control box. So we need a spot for it too. So I really wanted to put it underneath the dash somewhere, okay? So you can get a good look of what we have to work with here. Over there you have a really deep glove box. And I think I'm gonna have some future things to do with the glove box, so I wanted to stay away from it. I didn't want it down near the feet of the passenger. And then you have this area up in here that's taken up by the smart lock system and the mounting bracket for the smart lock. Now I'll tell you a little bit of future plans here. I want to eventually put the Can-Am heater unit in here. And in order to do that, you have to buy a relocation bracket for this smart lock box. And there's no picture online, and I've been on forums and I haven't been able to find anybody that can tell me where the relocation goes once you buy that kit. I don't know if it swings straight down and uses up that space right there, or if it mounts, somewhat between the glove box and this area. But I know that once I put that heater box in, the heater takes up this area here, this entire area, and has vents all the way around, plus some that go down into this area. So you have to buy that relocation bracket for your smart lock box. So in order just to stay away from underneath the dash, remember, we need to find a place for an auxiliary battery later too. So to make it just a little bit easier, let me show you this area over here on the passenger side. And as you can see, where the seat actually, they sit in these two little grommets right here. There's a pretty good little void between the seat and this plastic piece. So I wanted to do the same thing over here. I'm thinking about putting that control box underneath the passenger seat, but I wanted to make sure that if I put a screw in here, I wasn't going to drill into, again, a really expensive wiring harness that I would have to replace. So I took the seats out a while back, and to take the seats out, you only have two bolts on each side like this, and then these two bolts down there, the blue tip bolts between the seat belts, and there's 6 bolts, and both seats come out in one unit. I started to take this piece off, but realized that this floor pan under the seats actually runs all the way across and up in both sides. So I'd have to start taking exterior plastic pieces off. You can't see underneath this side over here from anywhere underneath. So What I decided to do was still use the space, but I'm not going to drill into the seat. Nothing on Can-Am's website looks like there's anything under this passenger seat either. I looked all through the website. Still not going to take the risk. So I bought some two-sided tape. Remember, this is kind of a lower area here. So, but I did buy some Gorilla two-sided tape that I'm going to use. And I'll show it to you here. So this is mounting tape, heavy duty, and it says weatherproof right there, indoor, outdoor. It says it holds up to 30 pounds. So yeah, it looks to be pretty thick. Looks to be rated for outdoor use. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Is I'm going to use the two-sided tape down here at this box. So that's the plan. We're going to save some of the space up under the dash for some future things that we have going on. And it's actually going to make the wiring not bad. Remember, wherever you put this this control box, it's where you have to wire all of your attachments to. So my roof light bar, my bumper light bars, rock lights in the future, all that good stuff is going to wire to underneath the passenger seat. I would rather have it under the dash, yes, for wiring purposes, but just for keeping areas open for future plans, I think this is probably the best option. So again, this is the breaker. I think I want it mounted in this general area here. I've already checked to make sure that the seat won't go down far enough to actually touch this thing. So power goes in this side and then out to the box on this side. So these are just rubber removable caps that just come off, and they're tethered. They're tethered to the unit with a small rubber string. So those are our studs that we're going to use. So we're going to come out of the positive, wire to here with the provided 8-inch cable, and then from here I'm going to route it underneath the seats and then through the seatbelt bracket, maybe on this side, probably on this side, through here, around, and then we're going to mount the control box over here. So that 24-incher should get us over there. And then we have the 32-inch black that should get us from all the way over there to the negative terminal here. But before we start wiring, we're going to disconnect the negative terminal and make sure it's insulated to any metal that's around so that we can start wiring this thing up. Right, so a little 10mm wrench right on the post here. This battery terminal should come right off. There's the screw, and there's the negative terminal. Okay, so I try to put you guys on a good view here, but I decided to use 2 of the screws that were in the kit. Now, you put them down in the hole, they only stick out about 1/4 of an inch or so they're not going to be sticking down far. Again, you still have a skid plate underneath, so this is in between the seat pan and the skid plate. So I'm hoping that's enough to grab and just kind of hold us in place. I think it will be. So this is where I want to put it, near that divot, and let's see if we can get this in here. Okay, grab there. Pretty good. Do the same thing here. Again, you don't want to put too much on it. This is pretty sturdy. You know, I'm putting some good force on it, and it looks pretty good. So next is power with our small 8-inch cable over to this stud here on the battery. Okay, so again, 10 millimeter. This is a ratcheting wrench on the positive terminal. Got to come all the way off. This does have nylon bushing to make it tight. We're just going to slip our 8-inch on here, put that bolt right back on, that nut right back on, put that nut right back on. Okay. I did decide to route it back this way some instead of the other way. Just most closely followed the natural path of the cable, what was already on it. A small little bend that it already had. Alright, I'm going to leave this just a little bit loose for now and then get this side connected. This circuit breaker also has a 10 millimeter on it. Then we're just going to bring this up and land it just like that. Put this back on. This one I'm just going to use a wrench on, or a socket. Still loose. Now, a lot of this electrical, people like to put some serious torque on, but it needs to be tight. But you got to watch. You don't want to make it so tight that something breaks. So I'll just put that fairly tight without feeling like I was overdoing it. And then we're going to finish tightening this positive terminal up. I'll hold the battery down. So you can see I'm putting some torque on that prong that's connected to the battery, so not too much. And there's our power connection to the battery over to our circuit breaker. So the next one is going to be the 24-inch cable on the output side of the circuit breaker. Okay, so I've somewhat routed the cable underneath the seating system in a way to where I don't think that somebody sitting on the seat will crush the cable between it and another piece of metal or the body. Then I'm just going to slide the ring terminal down and put this 10 millimeter bolt on here. It was kind of hard to see. It's really tight down in here, so. I'm going to hold that cable here so that we keep it in line. I'm going to need a deep well socket so that I don't keep hitting this reset button. I said a deep well, but I guess just a regular extension here will work as well. Hold that cable. Tighten it down. Okay. So there's our circuit breaker. And I go ahead and open it up so that you know, we can work over there. It's no big deal. There's no negative, but we'll still go ahead and open it up. All right, let's move to the passenger seat underneath. So I went ahead and installed the black ground cable, and I kind of took a different path here. So the red's down there, the black's up here, but it goes straight underneath and then comes up underneath that jacketing, that flex tubing right there. And it's going to run over to the negative terminal over there. Just wanted to show you that routing. It goes up underneath. It's really hard to see because of the light. Let me bring a light over here. Yeah, it goes up underneath there, then comes up. So I'm going to go ahead and attach it and then pull it tight through the whole route, and then see how much is left. Leave all the excess over here for now. Okay, so I've also routed the negative cable, same path, parallel, kind of hard to see over there, over to the negative side of the battery. I don't have very much black left on this side, so it's gonna make me probably have to mount this a little closer than I originally thought. So we'll probably mount this up in this area, kind of back a little bit near the bar, but I'm using the double-sided tape. Hopefully it holds up. And remember, all your attachments have to wire to this side of these terminals. So we're going to be looking at anything up front coming through the center console for wiring, then anything from the back, probably down a side. We'll have to look at that when we get to it, but it's pretty wiring in this is a little bit easier than some of the setups I've had in the past, so hopefully it all goes well. I'm going to stick this down with some tape, and I'll get back with you. Okay, so I got my Gorilla tape here. Just going to open it up and apply it to the back of this panel first, and stick it on. Okay, so I got two big pieces of that Gorilla tape on here. As you can see, there's holes in the bottom, and this is where your wiring goes in and out. If you're mounting it on a Jeep or on any kind of ledge, you could mount it to where you could still get to those wiring holes. I don't have the luxury of that, so the cables coming in and out, we're going to have to custom make some holes to enter the plastic cover, but we'll do that here in a little while. Right now, we're just going to peel this plastic off and stick it where we want it on the passenger side under the seat. Okay, this is the harder part, to make sure it's lined up when it goes down. I want it pretty close to the driver's side. I'm just going to barely lay it on there. Yep, that looks good. Now we're going to stick it. Push down really hard. Okay, so that's on there, and I'm going to take the lid off. The lid can still come off, so that's a good thing. I didn't really think about that too much. So let's go ahead and land our power and ground here, and get that finished up. Again, these are ring terminals, so these have to come all the way out. Okay. Get this cable pushed back. We want the ring turned around. In order to get it to work, I had to kind of come in at an angle there. I'm gonna leave it at that angle as well. Hold the cable. Okay. There's the positive. Now we need to terminate the negative. Positive should have been this easy, but where it had to go straight down and underneath, did not like that angle on the crimp. So we modified the angle and now we're good. All right. There's our power and ground. Okay, so I have the driver's side of this taken off, and I don't think I even need to take the passenger side off, but you can kind of see where the wiring is ran now through the tube track. I can never remember what that stuff's called. The flexible, cheap tubing. It's the best description for it, probably. So I'm gonna, connect here, and then I'll route straight back to the left side of the smart lock module, the left side, and I'll zip tie it up, and I'll probably just zip tie all along this main trunk cable coming down. I'll get to here, and then I'll jump over the console down into there, and you can already see our power wires for this unit right there. So I'll jump down into there and then jump over into the control panel. I'm not going to take you through the whole process, but that's the plan, and I'll show it to you when I'm done. All I've done is take the cable, and I fed the 4-pin end. I put most of the cable over in the driver's side and then fed one end down and through. So you can see the cable here with the braid. And then it has a clip, and this clip side goes on the outside where there's something to clip to here. So I'm gonna clip it in. And there's a definitive click whenever it actually seats down on there. So this is the control wiring to the switch panel. So it's ran underneath, kind of with the power cables, but now it's going to turn and go up the console. I have this partially ran over here, and I started zip tying, but I also have the wire to run from the key switch. And so before I zip tie this whole thing, I'm going to run my key switch wire along the same track as well and zip tie it all together. So I just wanted to show you these two clips right here, or these two connections. So each side, you can kind of see that little cutout in it. So there's only one way that this connector can go in. Trying to do this to where you can still see, but you have to match it up with the groove here in this 4-pin. So that matches up with this groove, and then it twists on. So I can try to show you here from this angle, and get it somewhat lined up first. Make sure those 4 pins go in good. Okay. And then you twist and make the connection like that. So that's what it looks like. I'm going to have plenty of leftover from just the cable that came with it. I've cut what appears to be an adequate length of some 14 gauge THHN red wire that I had in my garage. So what we need to do is we're going to make up a connection to my stud, which is for key power, because I want everything to turn off when I turn the key off. So that'll turn the entire board off. Again, we already talked about using the fuse options. I am going straight from a key stud, so I'm using a 14 gauge red THHN wire, bought from a spool at Lowe's, I believe, as well as a ring terminal that can be heat shrinked for a weather tight seal. Bought this at Advance. Just got to make sure that your terminal fits your stud and that it's not too wide for anything between the studs. So I'm gonna get this wire stripped, and then I'll show you the process that I use to connect a ring terminal with the heat shrink on it. Okay, so we have our wire stripped back about 1/4 of an inch. This might be a little bit more than that. That's okay. And you slide it on and then crimp it. It's supposed to use the blue connector crimp. And this is important. You got to make sure that your crimp holds. So you kind of pull on it, make sure it's good. Then, once you know your connection's good, then you heat shrink it. I use this little benzomatic torch. It's works really good for this application because the flame's small. We're not doing anything too heavy duty here, so this works perfectly. And it's refillable. So get that heat shrink. Just like that. I actually like to see a little bit of bubbles come out of it, just to make sure it's nice and melted. You don't want to damage your wire though, so I'm kind of holding the heat away from it a little bit. Yeah, there you can see the bubbles start to come out. So that is a waterproof connection, one that'll last a while too. Okay, so now that that's done, the other end of this is going to be into this 2-pin. Now I thought about yanking this one out and trying to just fit this end in. Not sure what I'm going to do. I might have to have a crimp here. Again, I'll use my my heat shrinkable connections here as well, just to get it to the 2-pin. But for now, let me run this wire from my key switch all the way over to the control panel, and then we'll finish the wiring up on the control box. Okay, so for the 22 Commander, I guess I think it's 20, 21, 22 Commanders, the new body style Commanders. Up under the dash, this is the steering wheel right here. If you go up under the steering wheel, you have the steering column, steering box, and then up in the dash, you can see some electrical connections. But if you go a little bit further back, you see 3 studs right here. And one you can see a big red wire on. And then the middle one you can kind of see a big black wire. And then to the left of that, that is your key ACC wire. So that's the stud I'm using to wire to my control box. So that's the key wire. Wire that straight to the 2-pin, and we should have power anytime the key's on. I have the wires ran. I did have, oh, I need to cut that tag off. Comes out of the switch panel there, gets zip tied, and then goes over. I've bunched up quite a bit of extra right there. There's no real way to shorten it. And then it follows, of course we hit our switch up here, our key switch. And then starting from there, both of them route down through and around, up and over, and then to the switch panel. I still got to make this termination there, put all my panels back on, and the Auxbeam will be wired up. So I did end up making this one more heat shrink splice here from my 14 to there. Pretty sure is a 16 to the 2-pin, and then I connected it there. So it's all wired up. I need to connect the negative terminal with the negative from here, from the control board. So I'm about to do that right now, and once I hook it back up, we'll put the key in and see if we get lights up here before we close everything back up. Got the negative terminal hooked up and the negative to the control box. So we're going to test it really quick. I'm going to turn my light out and put the key in, see if we get lights. I'm not exactly sure how it works, so we'll see if it works. There's the key. Let's do one button here. So we do have lights. They're green, I guess, from the start. I know that there's an app that you can use to change them. So it does look like it's working. Well, we got to get the attachments, some attachments hooked up to make sure, but fairly promising that we have lights. Doesn't look too awful bad. So give me just a little while and we'll get some attachments on it. We'll really test it. So just to test it out really quick, I decided to hook up this light bar that I bought. It's got a big wiring harness that I won't be using, but it's on the bench right now. So I'm gonna hook it up to the first channel there, the 30 amp. That's what's in the inline fuse that came with the light bar. So let's just see. I'm curious. So the cord has a switch to turn on the DRL, which is an LED series right in the middle of the 80 LEDs that are on it. So the switch can toggle back and forth between that. But all this is going to do right now is put power on the whole system. So let's hook it up and see what happens here. A little bit of testing, anyways. We did finally get it installed. One thing to note is if you install on a flat surface like this, you are going to have to cut holes in this cover right here. Let me pull it off. I did have to notch out for my incoming wires here and any outgoing wires there. So outgoing wires, incoming. I guess you guys can probably do a better job making these look a little bit better, but I just used my roto zip or my Dremel tool and cut out some notches for the cabling. If you install under your hood, you have these little notches down the bottom, these little holes. That's where the cabling would come in and out normally, but since I installed on a flat surface, that wasn't really an option. So you have to notch this. This doesn't look to be waterproof anyways. It's metal against plastic, so your waterproof functionality comes from that sealed board, the sealed circuit board. So you're still going to get water on your terminals here. Should be okay. We're going to test it out. We'll be spraying it with a water hose and everything else, so we'll let you know how that stands up over time with rust and other things. Should be okay. Then you pop this cover back on. So that's installed. I have a light bar on it right now over on the bench, and I was testing with it last night. So you got the circuit breaker over there, switch panel under the passenger seat, the Auxbeam switch panel up here, and then the wiring that goes down the middle, pops over, and then the power wiring that goes over to the battery and the circuit breaker. So I'm going to give it some ACC power here. I guess the default color is green. And just to show you, I do have the one big light bar hooked up. Okay, it has a switch on it too though, so I gotta make sure that the switch is actually turned on. Wherever that's at, right here is switch. So I'll put it on 2. This light bar has daytime running lights in the middle, and then the main lights. So I'm gonna press this first button right here. That's what I'm wired to here. And as you can see, it is working. That is the daytime running light, so I can flip the switch in and turn on the full light bar. Yeah, it's a lot brighter. All right, so good to go. We're tested. So before I put this whole machine back together, I know I got to clean up tools and stuff, but the windshield is next. So I'm going to go ahead and put the windshield on. I'm going to do a video on it as well. Then we'll put the top light bar on, and then the bumper light bar, and then all we got to do now is land our wires here in this box, and we're good to go. We got buttons for them, and makes it super easy from here on out. All right, so that's it for this video. That is the Auxbeam RGB 8-gang switch panel install, and you can find this unit on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description of the video so that you can just jump on that link and go see what I installed and how much it is and all that. So appreciate you guys joining me again. Again, this is One More Ride YouTube channel. There's probably going to be One More Ride Garage, and we're going to be doing installs like this a lot, so make sure you hit the subscribe button. Most of our content right now is going to be based on this 2022 Commander XTP, and but we'll have other stuff in the future as well, other units, other side-by-sides, other trucks. We're going to do lift kits, leveling kits, tires, wheels, all that good stuff. So stay tuned and we'll bring you some more content.